This is the Helpful Lockpicker here, and welcome back to my Lockpicking Homeschool series. The video I have for you today is going over how to open up your first warded lock. Warded locks are a very old technology that's been around for a long time, and they work great for low security applications, but they are very vulnerable to unauthorized access. When you're going to open up a warded lock, the tools that you typically use are called a warded lock pick or a skeleton key. I typically think warded lock picks are more of something that you buy commercially. Here's some examples of some now, and I'll get a close-up of them in a minute. And then a skeleton key. A skeleton key is a key that goes to a warded lock that you have filed down all the false protrusions and only left the true protrusions, and you use that to pick into your lock. And I'll get a close-up of all of these in just a moment. Now that we have an example of what our tools are that we're going to need to open up our warded locks, I'd like to show you them in action briefly, and then I'll go into some more detail. This is a warded lock I bought at the dollar store that is probably as easy as they get in terms of opening them. This warded lock opens up very well with the key, as you can see here. And I'm going to select the correct warded lock pick, and this one opens up just as fast with the pick as it does with the key. And that will open up any type of these warded locks that you could buy at the store. And then I have this other master lock here. If you have a warded lock pick that fits your lock exactly perfectly, they can open up the lock almost as easily as the key can. On this lock, the key works very well. And then let me show you an example of using the warded lock pick. I'm going to select the one with the two protrusions that look like this, because I know that those line up with this lock perfectly. I just insert and turn, and then I can usually, without too much friction, get this lock open right away, as you can tell. But now I'd like to get into a little bit more detail of how warded locks work and why picking them can be so easy. Now I'd like to go over how a warded lock works and how you can easily identify one. What I'd like to do first is going over how to identify a warded lock. They have a very distinct look to them that looks completely different than a pin and tumbler lock. The first thing you can do is start with the keys. On a pin and tumbler lock that you can see on the bottom here, and versus the warded lock key on the top, is that they look very different. On this warded lock key here, you can see that it has cuts on the top and the bottom, and they're very radical, high and low, and they're very, irregular. Like this one's wide, the middle short. They just aren't consistent in the spacing, because these keys work completely differently. But the first thing you can do is see the key to the lock, and you can usually quickly identify that it will be a warded lock. The second thing you can do is look directly at the keyway. The keyways look completely different on a warded lock versus a pin and tumbler lock. As you can see, the blue lock here is an American lock 1100 series, and then on the right is the warded lock. Inside the warded lock, you can see that it has a very open keyway. And then on top of that, they usually have a little floating disc on the front. So you can tell that it looks completely different. And then when you look inside the keyway, there are no key pins. You cannot see any pins in there because they simply aren't there. But how does a warded lock work? A warded lock works by key control. Inside the keyway, there are false protrusions inside that will prevent the lock from opening. These protrusions do not allow the lock to open, but they are there for security. How it works is every key that operates the lock has the bitting on it here cut out specifically so that it will not hit those protrusions on the inside, and the key will be able to turn freely. If you have the wrong key in, it will fit the keyway, but it will not turn because there will be metal inside the lock preventing that. But what we discovered through time is that if someone is able to file off all the false protrusions off the key, yes, they will still be in the lock, preventing the wrong key from opening it, but if the false protrusions are shaved off the key, it won't matter because they're not there and they will not interface with it. And now you only need to leave the true protrusion on your key that will operate the lock. So what you see here is the key that operates the lock and a skeleton key I made by filing off all the false protrusions. So I'm going to go over now how to open up a lock with a skeleton key. I'm going to show you how this lock opens up here. This is the very cheap one I got at the dollar store, and this one opens up very easily. Why does this one open up so easily? One is it only has one wire. Inside of every warded lock there is either one or two wires typically that you need to lift in order to get the lock open, and it will lift very easily with the correct key, or if you have a warded lockpick that matches up perfectly with the profile of your key, it will open it up just like the key. So you can see that this key opens up this lock very well. How come this warded lockpick opens up the lock so easily? Is because when you take a look at the key and the warded lockpick, they match up perfectly. On this key, the only part that you need to get this lock open is the little tip at the end. The rest of the end of the key is just the security bitting here that is lining up with the wards so this key will open. But say you had the wrong key, these little pieces of metal here would be cut at different heights and they would not match up with the wards in the lock, and you would not be able to turn the key to get it open. This one bypasses all of the wards and it just gets down right to the end where the wire is because it has no protrusions on it. It can just go right in. So when you have a warded lockpick that matches up very well with the key, there's really not too much you need to do to get the lock open. As a second example of a warded lockpick that matches up well with the key, I can show you on this master lock here. So here's the key right here, and as you can tell, it works very well. When you take a look at the warded lockpick versus the key here, all you need is the two protrusions at the end in order to get this lock open. The rest are just for the key control to prevent unauthorized access, but once again, since the warded lockpick doesn't have any of those extra protrusions, it can bypass all the wards very easily and open the lock. And because this key matches the profile of the true key, this warded lockpick can literally open up this lock just like if it were the key. Sometimes it has a little bit of fuss with it, but it works very well. Now I'd like to show you an example of how to pick a lock when you do not have a warded lockpick or a skeleton key that matches up perfectly. So on this lock here, you can see that the original key opens it up very well. But on many of the warded locks, one thing that I have found to be true is that the end bitting is usually involved in opening up the lock, but some of these locks have two wires in them, but you do not always know exactly where the second wire lies in the lock. So what I have done on this skeleton key here, which many others have done in the past, is that I have shaved off everything but the end protrusion. And we're going to use this to open up the lock. It will not open up as easily as the previous locks because we do not have a key that matches up perfectly. And you can do this either with the skeleton key or one of your warded lockpicks. It doesn't really make a big difference because it's all the same principle. But in order to get this open, what you're going to need to do is apply tension to the shackle. So you're just going to pull on it, and that will allow the wires to stay set once you have set them. And once you have both of them set, the lock will open. So there's really no real technique to this. You just insert the skeleton key, apply tension on the shackle, and just twist the key, and then go in and out in a twisting motion until you set both wires, and the lock will open up. And that's all there is to it. So one really cool concept about the skeleton key is that one key can essentially be made a key to all locks as long as it fits in the keyway, which is a really cool thing. And when you look at this skeleton key, it may fit this keyway very well, but on this lock it does not fit it. So that is why warded lock picks are really great, because they are so versatile and they can really fit into almost any lock. So this is a really powerful skill to have. Warded locks are not something that you see very often anymore, but they do have some good applications in low security settings. They work very well in cold weather. They don't tend to freeze up as much, and they're very cheap and cost effective to have. Either way, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe. As always, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.